Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of How to Rebel. My name is Darren,
I'm Gugu.
And I'm Jade.
and today we are going to be speaking about tattoos. And at the tail end, we're going to get into how to create some real systemic change. But let's start with the markings. You wanna-
With the markings.
the markings,
Wants to do
maybe the
tattoo
piercings as well. I don't
journey.
have much piercings or tattoos, but anyway,
Yes. No. Look. Personally, for me, I think I learned to rebel in weird ways since I was a kid. So to some extent, it's been normalized, or it's kind of expected because I've been told the same things over and over. But eventually, I got to a point where I'm like, but I'm gonna see now, because this is what everybody's been telling me. Is at the point where I get to a certain age, I must now see, or I will feel, or I will suffer the consequences.
Right.
So
That
I
was
was
the threat
always
to make
yes,
you
I
not-
was always a person who was like, okay, but I'm gonna now suffer. I'm gonna suffer the consequences. So why are you being involved in my suffering? So my first tattoo, when I got home, I didn't say anything about
How
it.
old were
I
you?
didn't. I made sure I was legal first. So there was that because
Okay.
I must say that different rules applied. So when it was me, I was like, I think I was 19
Okay.
or something like that. And I got my first tattoo, and it was I went on about it like it was normal. I came home with my tattoo wrapped. It was on my upper arm, my tattoo wrapped, and my mom was like, well, "What's that?" So I was like, "It's tattoo." She's like, "Oh, this is the temporary one." So I was like, "No." And then, meanwhile, I'm busy buttering my bread. It's a tattoo. She's like, "Oh, okay." And then I went on with life. I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." That was me. But this is how I do everything in life. I don't. I set the normal. I set the normal. I don't let anybody else determine my normal for me. So I feel like if I freaked out or if I try to hide it or if I make a big deal of it, then people are going to respond to it like it is a big deal in most instances. So I tend to not. I tend to, when I go and sit in a boardroom, I wear a V-neck t-shirt, and you must not get over the fact that there's a big tattoo on my chest, or you can look at it all day. But I'm not going to make a big deal out. I'm not going to wear polo necks just so you don't notice I have tattoos on my chest, and the second you see a strippy there, then there's something. It's like, oh, I didn't know.
Oh, I had a very different experience.
Let go.
I got my first tattoo when I was 29. And it was originally just these two bands and then like a stripe down my arm where it says like life and death here on my hands. So that was what I first got. Then like I filled up the arm and I went like all in. And that was also then, you show up at the family function and they're like, you get the looks from the aunties and they're like, what is this? What does this mean? And then every now and then an uncle will have an outburst about, can you go to heaven with that on? I'm not even joking. That's what he said. Like, can you go to heaven with that on? I was like,
My
well,
dad asked me
I guess
that.
I'm gonna find out now.
Didn't you
We're
get the
never gonna know.
transcript for what goes and what doesn't?
No, he's Saint Peter. He's got the list at the gate of heaven.
Hey.
He knows what's going on there.
Then I did the throat. The throat.
And then you were guaranteed elder.
For sure. The throat, or what they call the job stopper. That is when things really started to, like the kind of things I was told by very close family was some hurtful stuff. And then that's when the perception from people around me was like, it's not just a form of expression anymore. It's like people assumed I didn't have any qualifications anymore. They made assumptions about how I was going to sound before I spoke. They made assumptions about whether I did drugs or not. There was lots and lots and lots of assumptions that came with, and it was wild to see.
Because you got tattoos, people automatically had a lens on
Yeah.
every time that they.
And it was crazy to see because look, with our generation, tattoos started to become a lot more normalized. And so on the arms, it wasn't that bad. But when it started to be noticeable, like on the hands and neck, now it was like, oh. So there was this stereotype thrown on me that I was some lazy, unemployed, drug addicted gangster irresponsible, uneducated, all these kind of things. I actually started to, because I forget I have them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really forget I
Yeah.
have them. So sometimes I'll catch people just looking at me and and I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh, I have like tattoos up to my ears. And then, so it could be like a dirty stare or it could be like just interest. But I think the most hurtful part about that is that that stereotype was sometimes thrown on me by people that I knew, people who knew me growing up. It's like, oh, now they assume that I was a whole different person, which in many ways I was, but they assumed all these things negatively. And so that was crazy to just experience in the span of a year.
That job thing that you mentioned.
The job
was
stopper.
The job stopper.
Yeah.
That was something that I was told a lot as well. I remember at one of the organizations that I worked for. I was in the room at the time with the human resource manager, right? And at that point, I was more of like a mid-senior manager, and she was like, "Stop!" We had a disagreement about something, and she says, somebody said, "Stop saying that as if you make that decision," right? And it was my decision to make. And she went on to say, "You never will be that person, especially not looking like that." And that was in reference to my tattoos, right? And the wild thing to me is I am the head with these tattoos today. And it doesn't change anything because I normalized it. I'm literally responsible for the bulk of an entire company's people. And I walk around with tattoos on my chest, which has had no impact whatsoever at how absolutely brilliant I am at doing what I'm doing anyway.
Love that.
I had the conversation with the CEO and I said to him, like, what's what? And he said to me, I could either have looked at that all day or discovered what the hell it is that you are about. And now it's part of who you are. And it's who you are. And I was like, cool, sharp. This is why I work for your company and nowhere else. It's because somebody in a boardroom cannot scale up the tattoos on my chest for whatever it is and whatever it means to them. They have no idea what it represents to me. But for whatever it may be, that who I am as a person is automatically perceived different, that I would be a risk to somebody now because I have tattoos versus where I'm not. And I said to me, it's easy. I could have just worn a buttoned up shirt and you would have known no different. You would have thought you are hiring this corporate badass. When indeed you are. You just don't know how much. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And people have values in their companies where they say, like, we want you to have freedom. So I said, but not over my body. How then am I free? Do you understand? That job stopper thing for me really hit, like, and a lot of people were like, you are in a corporate space. This is not going to be allowed. You're not going to be able to do this. I have my best days in my sneakers, my t-shirt, my jeans, and I have so much fun. And I absolutely am comfortable running things without having this reflection of, but your what does it matter? You know, to me it's like, does it matter if you have a piercing? Is this what I'm going to be sitting fixated about all day?
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a wild way.
The
But in the
answer is
same
yes.
way,
The answer is yes, they're
you
gonna.
also mentioned how people express themselves in how they speak as well.
Yeah.
So for me personally, a lot of that was, I was taught to not speak that way. Otherwise, I was called kham, you know? Or I was told that I am of a different type of class because I speak a certain way. And it's a while of, I still have those chats because my parents don't speak English. They don't speak English to each other. They don't speak English to me. They don't speak English to their children, but all of us had this expectation to, one, go to an English school and two, speak English very fluently. The better you spoke, the higher your chances were perceived of being employed.
Right.
That was the narrative there, right? So over time, it was this thing that was squeezed out of you that if you speak in a certain way, you're going to be regarded as a lower part of society in general. Want jy's gaan, jy's kom en jy praat a certain way, jy moet reg praat. You know? And what is reg praat then? Reg praat is having it put into this boereboxie.
Eurocentric kind of.
Exactly, which again is not native to me because Afrikaans is made up of a lot of things that are native to me. And there are language, there are words that isn't part of regpraat, but it's part of Afrikaans and what it actually and how it was created. Like goga and ena and so many other words that came from native languages that came up from how the language was really made because it's not this Dutch copy-paste thing that people think it is either, you know? So if I really am speaking the native Afrikaans and how it was created, it is that gam thing that people are now looking down on because other people said, this is not suiwer. This nie suiwer nie.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to only speak a certain way and the same thing with English. You know, you shouldn't be able to detect my native language in my English, then my English is good enough.
Yeah.
And even in a lot of instances in the workplace, I've had to sort of undo that from people and say, no, when you can't disqualify somebody for having a strong accent. Because English is the accent, my friend, not their native language.
Yeah.
You when you are looking at the two,
We forget which continent we're on.
You know what I mean?
exactly, it is it's English that is the accent, not their native language.
Yeah.
That is native to them. Of course, it will be thick. What do you mean?
Yeah.
But over time, we've been taught to nicely sand ourselves down so that we sound acceptable and Eurocentric enough. Cool. There are some sounds in the background, so just bear with us there. We've got some works going on. But what I wanted to say as well is that when you then go back home, you are told, "I feel that," you know. Then when you speak English the way you speak English, and we switch up, then people tell you, "No, you are now pretending to be something that you are not."
Yeah.
So if you're too much on this side, you're given a label. If you're too much on that side, you're given a label. So to me, I'm just like, sick.
That's funny.
You've got a fair amount of. You've got a little bit of.
Artwork. I'm not a. I've got some pieces on me. When you guys were talking about the accent, hello, listen to me. Listen to me. My grandmother beat this accent into me. Okay, I read the cat sat on the mat, and that became the cat sat on the mat, and that became the cat sat on the mat. I sounded like I walked out, and I say this every time I describe my accent, that I walked out of Queen Elizabeth's. That I was created tailor-made to sound that way. And the thing my grandmother would tell me when she made me speak this way was that it's to make it easier for them to understand you. It's to make it
How old
easier.
were you when this was happening?
Probably 6, 7 years old when I started learning. I was a kid. I basically learned English as a home language. My grandmother was an English teacher. My grandfather was mathematics. So I learned English as a home language. I did speak my own mother tongue, but I know English more than I do my own mother tongue. It's actually destroyed my mother tongue because now my default is actually English. So I was raised palatable. I am the palatable black.
I think it's a form of us sort of taking back control over our own bodies, right? And being free to express ourselves the way we want to, especially to me when it comes to, this is mine. I should have full autonomy over it.
Me, assimilation, gold star. That's my grandmother's one goal. That was the number one thing she said. She gave me 2 English names as well, under the guise that I need an alternative that they can say.
What's the other name?
Oh, God. I have 2 English names, Megan and Candace and Nikita.
What's it on your ID?
It's fine.
Okay.
No, it's the first 3. I have like a long
Wait,
list
is it
of
on
names.
your ID?
Yeah, the first 3 names and the last one. The MC, yeah.
Hectic.
It's on my. She's the one that put it there.
really?
She's the one. She gave me her name, put the 2 English names in there, all for assimilation purposes. And then she taught me the way that she did. And the way that my grandmother like raised me also touches on the ways to rebel. It didn't take much for it to be a rebellion. I just had to say no. So I was already kind of defiant as a child, or termed defiant for just wanting my own autonomy. I started the tattoo journey a lot late as well. Like I got it 2021.
Oh, is that your first one?
Yeah. That was my first tattoo, 2021. And it was this rose tattoo that I got. My piercing as well, I got like a month before. So it started with the piercing on my nose. Because this one obviously was fine. This one's the one that was imposed on us daily at 4 to be little pretty ones, you know?
Yeah.
This one I did, and the tongue one I did around August. And I had the tattoo around September. And give or take a little stay at a clinic, I had Christmas with the family. So it was like a one moment I was their little their little perfect representation of a BEE baby, right?
Yeah.
And then a girlie walks in, tattoos on her wrist, on her arm here with piercings. And my grandmother goes, I don't like it. And I'm like, oh, okay, look away. And the whole family goes, you know, the drama. Then my uncle's like, oh, but like, why would you do that? Don't mark your body. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I was like, Auntie, whose body is it? Like, I was sitting there. The thing is, as Jade said, like, if you act as if it's not normal, you kind of give them the basis to gas you like it's not.
Yeah.
So if I were to have reacted in any other way other than my shady ways of silencing them, they would have had even more meh on me. And the thing is, I gave them this tattoo and they were like, meh. Then I got another one on my foot and another one over here. Like literally by the time it was like 2022, I had tattooed up, you know? And then I also got this girdie over here, which is bigger. Like I even forgot to tell my mom about this thigh tattoo. Like I was in the shower when she found it.
Well, everybody doesn't have tattoos.
Yeah.
Right? I think dress code is also another thing. That is a big one.
Yes, it is.
I don't mess with suits anymore.
So again, there's the the Eurocentric acceptable one.
For a guy, it's a bit more. You know what I mean? The man must wear suit and tie. So for me, I try not to.
I think COVID helped a little bit with that,
Yes, it did.
right? Because what happened was, it's cool. They were sitting in their suit and tie, jacket and shirt. But then my guy was having a fab time sitting there in his boxer shorts as well, and his socks actually. So what they were doing was getting work done, and it was getting done regardless of what it was that you were wearing, whether it was your gown, whether you were sitting there in your suit, jacket, and your tie, and your auntie. Nobody knew the difference, right? And the point that was, I think, created out of that is you can do what you need to do regardless of what it is you're wearing. So I hope there's a different perspective of that, but there's still the Eurocentric acceptability of it. It must still be a jacket. You know, it must still be some form of a Eurocentric representation of that. And when we do things that are wild or different, and even when you look at fashion now, music, another example. Every time that Lady Gaga does something, so every time that, what was the recent one? They were like, oh, they're straight from hell.
Oh, it was Sam Smith's performance
Sam Smith
of
as an example.
Even far back, like a Prince.
Oh yeah, no.
Your shame.
There's the devil. The devil has been in music as long as the vulnerable have used it as an expression of their pain.
And people create this narrative.
That's
Somebody
so
had
profound,
it as well in the week in the conversation we had, where they were like, but this music inspires things. So I said, you know what, if you sit there and you think that somebody is writing of something that they want to invoke rather than something that has happened, especially when it comes to hip hop, and when you look at South African history as well, a lot of the artists from the apartheid times had to go in exile because their music was considered as a form of rebellion against the government. So people like Miriam Makeba, Abdullah Ibrahim, their music was used as the theme songs, right, for a lot of either political or the Labour parties, as an example. Manenberg's from Abdullah Ibrahim ended up being the UDF's theme in the end, you know. But that music, again, wasn't written only to invoke and inspire, but it's also out of these struggles that it was. So it is also people that is literally documenting their experiences and turning it into art and music. So I'm like, it's wild. And even with the whole thing with Malema being in court every other year for shoot the boer, It's,
Yeah.
you know, kiss the boer. Sorry, it's for kiss the boer, my pet. Before somebody comes to me, it's for kiss the boer. But even that, you know, it's
It's in my head.
it's a wild thing.
Literally, I'm going.
And in art as well, there's graffiti, there's hip hop, and how much has hip hop been demonized, right?
Yeah.
To me, it also stems back to trying to now be a functional adult and things that really make me feel like I'm stuck in a system. So economically, that's a big thing for me right now.